To afford the average new car in America right now, following the standard rule that financial people have used for decades, you would need to earn about $178,000 a year. Let that sit for a second. $178,000. Meanwhile, about 88% of Americans earn under $150,000, which means the average new car has quietly become a luxury item that the overwhelming majority of the country cannot actually afford, even though we're all buying them anyway. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to do 3 things for you. First, I'll give you the simple rule that tells you your real number, not the number a dealer will approve you for, because those are wildly different things. Second, I'm going to run the actual math for 5 different salaries, so you can find yours and see your true car budget in real dollars. And third, near the end, I'll tell you the one sentence people say at a dealership that quietly costs them thousands of dollars, and exactly what to say instead. This video is for you if you're about to buy a car and you have a nagging feeling you might be about to overspend. Or if you already have a car payment and part of you suspects it's too big. I'm not here to tell you to drive a beater and never enjoy anything. I'm here to give you the actual number so you can decide with your eyes open, drop a comment with your current car payment if you're comfortable sharing, and subscribe if this helps. Chapter 1. What a car actually costs in 2026. Let's start with the sticker because the number has moved a lot and most people are still mentally anchored to what cars cost 5 years ago. The average price of a new car in America is now around $49,400. Not a luxury car, not a big truck, the average one. And that's before tax, before dealer fees, before anything else they add on at the desk. Now let's talk about what you actually pay to borrow that. The average interest rate on a new car loan right now sits somewhere around 6.5% to 7% for buyers with good credit. On used cars, it's higher, often over 8.5%, because lenders see used car loans as riskier. Here's a quick number that will help you your whole life. Every additional percentage point of interest adds roughly $20 a month for every $10,000 you borrow. So on a $40,000 loan, going from 6% to 7% cost, you about $80 extra a month, every month, for years. That's why the rate matters as much as the price, and we'll come back to that. But the loan payment isn't the real cost. This is the part almost everybody gets wrong, and it's why so many people end up feeling broke even though their payments seem fine. A car costs you money in 5 separate ways at the same time. The payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, and repairs. And depreciation, which is invisible but is often the biggest one of all. AOA estimates that the yearly cost of owning a car, not counting the loan payment at all, runs somewhere around $5,700. That's roughly $480 a month before you've made a single loan payment. So when somebody tells you their car costs them $600 a month, what they usually mean is their payment is $600 a month. The car is actually costing them closer to $1,000. And that gap, the difference between what people think their car costs and what it actually costs, is the single most common reason someone with a decent income feels permanently broke and can't figure out why. The money isn't disappearing mysteriously, it's going into a driveway. Chapter 2. The rule that gives you your real number. There's a guideline that's been around for decades, and it's still the cleanest way to figure out what you can genuinely afford. It's called the 24-10 rule. 3 numbers, easy to remember. 20 means put at least 20% down. 4 means finance the car for no more than 4 years. 10 means keep your total car costs, payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, everything, at or under 10% of your gross monthly income. Let me explain why each piece exists, because they're not arbitrary. The 20% down matters because of something brutal that happens to new cars. They lose about 20% of their value in the first year. So if you put nothing down and finance the whole thing, you are underwater almost immediately, meaning you owe more than the car is worth. If the car gets totaled or you need to sell, you're writing a check to get out of a car you no longer have. A real down payment protects you from that. The 4 years matters because the longer the loan, the more interest you pay, and the longer you spend underwater. Dealers love long loans because they make big cars look affordable. The average new car loan in America is now around 6 years, and a lot of people are being pushed towards 7. Every year you add makes the monthly payment look better and the total cost worse. The 10% matters because it's the part that protects the rest of your life. It leaves room for rent, food, savings, and everything else. And notice it's total cost, not just the payment. That's the piece people skip. And skipping it is exactly how a manageable payment quietly eats a budget. And here's the most important thing about this whole rule, so please don't miss it. The amount a dealer or a bank will approve you for is almost never the amount you can comfortably afford. Approval is based on whether you can technically repay it on paper. It has nothing to do with whether you'll still be able to save money, handle an emergency, or enjoy your life. The lender is not doing your budgeting for you. Nobody is. That's your job, and that's what this rule is for. Chapter 3. Your number by salary. All right, this is the part you came for. Let's run real numbers at 5 income levels. Find yours. Let's start at $60,000 a year. That's about $5,000 a month gross. 10% gives you $500 a month for everything car-related. After insurance, fuel, and maintenance, your actual loan payment lands somewhere in the $400 range. Working backwards from that with a 4-year loan and a 20% down payment, you're looking at a maximum car price somewhere in the mid-20,000s. Notice that's not far off the price of a decent used car, and it's about half the average new car price. Now $72,000 a year, $6,000 a month gross. 10% is $600 total. Take out $150 for insurance and about $100 for fuel and maintenance, and you're left with $350 for the actual payment. At today's rates over 4 years, $350 a month finances about $14,800. Add your 20% down payment, and that supports a car priced around $18,500 before tax and fees. Sit with that one for a second because it's uncomfortable. Someone earning $72,000 a year, a genuinely solid income, should be shopping around $18,000 or $19,000, not $49,000. Let's do $80,000. That's $8,000 a year for all car costs, about $667 a month total. That buys you roughly a $25,000 new car or around a $15,000 used one once you account for the higher used interest rate. Now let's go up to $120,000 a year, which puts you well above most American households. $12,000 a year for car costs. Subtract the roughly $5,700 in insurance, fuel, and maintenance, and you're left with about $6,250 for loan payments, which is around $521 a month. Over 4 years at current rates, that finances about $22,000. With 20% down, that's a car around $27,500. Read that again. A $120,000 income supports a $27,000 car, not a $49,000 one. And here's the math that produces the number from the opening. If you want to finance the average new car loan, about $42,000, while actually following this rule, you'd need to earn roughly $178,000 a year. Now let me do the one that's hardest to hear. At $75,000 a year, if you run the rule strictly, 10% gives you $7,500 a year. Subtract the AOA estimated ownership costs, and you have about $146 a month left for an actual loan payment. At used car interest rates over 4 years, that finances around $5,800, supporting a car around $7,250. I'm not going to pretend that's a satisfying answer. For a lot of people, that's a 12-year-old car with high mileage, and depending on where you live and what you do for work, that might not be realistic. We'll deal with that honestly in Chapter 8, because I'm not interested in handing you a rule that ignores your actual life. But I want you to see the raw math first, without softening it, because the gap between what the rule says and what people are actually buying is the whole story of car debt in this country. Chapter 4, Marcus and Olivia. Now let me show you the single most expensive habit in car buying, and I'm going to do it with 2 people. Meet monthly payment Marcus. Marcus walks into a dealership. He's done no prep. A salesperson asks him the friendliest question in the world. So what were you hoping to spend per month? And Marcus, being an honest guy, says, I could probably do about $600 a month. In that one sentence, Marcus just lost the negotiation. Here's why. The moment you name a monthly payment, you hand the dealer control of every other variable in the deal. Because the payment is not one number, it's the output of 4 numbers. The price of the car, the length of the loan, the interest rate, and the add-ons. The dealer can now move all 4 of those however they like. And as long as the payment lands near $600, Marcus thinks he won. Watch how that works. Say the car Marcus wanted was actually priced at $27,000 and financed normally would have been about $528 a month, comfortably under his stated limit. Marcus never learns that because he told them his ceiling was $600, so instead, he gets steered toward a higher trim, then a dealer package with floor mats and tinted windows he never asked for. Then maybe the loan quietly stretches from 4 years to 6 to keep the payment looking right. The payment still says $600. Marcus is thrilled, and he's paying thousands more than he needed to. Now meet out the door Olivia. Olivia spends about 30 minutes at home before she goes anywhere. She calculates her real number using the rule we just covered. She goes to her bank or credit union and gets pre-approved for a car loan, so she knows exactly what interest rate she qualifies for, and she decides on her maximum out-the-door price, the total including tax and fees, before she ever sees a car. Then at the dealership, when they ask her the monthly payment question, she says a version of this. I'm not focused on the monthly payment, I'm focused on the out-the-door price. That one sentence flips the entire dynamic. Now they can't hide anything in the term or the rate because Olivia is negotiating the only number that actually matters. And because she has a pre-approval in her pocket, if the dealer's financing isn't better than her bank's, she just uses her bank's. She has an alternative, which is the whole source of her leverage. Same car, same dealership, same day. Olivia drives away paying thousands less than Marcus, and the only difference was 30 minutes of preparation and one sentence. And I want to be clear about something because Marcus isn't stupid, he's not careless. He answered a friendly question honestly, which is what a normal decent person does. The entire process is designed around the fact that most people will answer that question. The dealership has done this thousands of times, and you've done it maybe 5 times in your life. That asymmetry is the whole game, and the only fix is walking in, already knowing your numbers. Chapter 5. The interest rate markup nobody tells you about. This connects directly to Olivia's pre-approval, and it's the piece most buyers have genuinely never heard. When you apply for financing through a dealership, the dealer submits your application to lenders. A lender comes back and says you qualify for, let's say, 6.5%. Here's the part that surprises people. In many cases, the dealer is allowed to present that to you at a higher rate, 7.5, say, and keep the difference as profit. This is a documented standard practice in auto lending, and it's been the subject of federal settlements over how it's been applied. Now run the numbers on what that costs. That extra 1% on a $27,000 car works out to hundreds of dollars in additional interest over the life of the loan and a higher payment every single month. And some markups run higher than 1 point. You would never know it happened. The rate looks plausible. It's roughly what you'd expect from headlines. And unless you walked in already knowing what you qualified for, you have no way to tell the difference. That is the entire reason a pre-approval is worth 30 minutes of your time. You call your bank or a credit union, tell them you're looking at a car loan for a certain amount, and they tell you what rate you qualify for. It's a short conversation and it costs you nothing. Not because you have to use it, you don't, but because it turns the dealer's financing offer into something you can check. If they beat your bank, great, take theirs. If they don't, you have somewhere else to go. Never having a second option is what makes people accept the first one. Chapter 6. Depreciation, the cost you never see. Here's the cost nobody puts on a spreadsheet, and it's usually the biggest one of all. A new car loses about 20% of its value in the first year, roughly 40% within 3 years. That's not a payment you make. It's value that quietly evaporates while the car sits in your driveway. Put real numbers on that. Buy a $49,000 new car, and in the first 12 months, roughly $10,000 of value is simply gone. You didn't spend it on anything. You didn't get to enjoy it. It just left. That's more than $800 a month of pure loss on top of everything you're actually paying. And this is exactly why the 20% down payment in the rule matters so much. If you finance the entire car with nothing down, that depreciation drops you underwater in the first few months. You owe more than the thing is worth. If you then need to sell it, or it gets totaled, you're paying money for a car you don't have anymore. But here's the flip side, and this is genuinely good news because depreciation cuts both ways. Chapter 7. Why used is usually the honest answer. All that value the first owner lost, if you're the second owner, you didn't lose it, you just got it at a discount. A car that's 3 to 5 years old typically costs somewhere around 35 to 40% of what it originally sold for. Concretely, a car that's stickered at $30,000 in 2022 might now sell for somewhere around $10,500 to $12,000. Same car, same seats. Most of its useful life still ahead of it. The first owner absorbed the brutal part of the depreciation curve, and you get to skip it. That's why, when the math in Chapter 3 felt impossible for your salary, the answer usually isn't give up. It's buy used. The rule that produces a depressing number on a new car often produces a genuinely good, reliable car when you shop 3 to 5 years old. 2 honest caveats, though. Used car interest rates run higher, often over 8.5%, so borrowing costs more. And an older car can cost more in maintenance, which can eat some of your savings. So look at the total cost of ownership for the specific model, not just the price. Some cars are famously cheap to keep running, and some will quietly destroy you in repairs. Chapter 8. When it's okay to break the rule. I promised I'd be honest, so let's have this conversation properly because a rule that ignores your real life isn't useful. The 24/10 rule is a target, not a moral test. There are real situations where you'll break it, and that doesn't make you irresponsible. If you live somewhere with no public transit and you need a car to get to work, you need a car. Full stop. A slightly too expensive car that gets you to a job is better than no car and no job. If your work requires a reliable vehicle, reliability is not a luxury, it's an input to your income. And if you're in a spot where the cheapest option is a car that breaks down constantly, the cheap car isn't actually cheap. Repair bills and missed work cost more than the payment you avoided. So here's how I'd use the rule if you can't hit it exactly. Treat each of the 3 numbers as a dial and know what each one costs you when you move it. Stretching the loan from 4 years to 5 is the least damaging move. You'll pay more interest, but it's a manageable trade if the car itself is reasonably priced. Going to 6 or 7 years is where it gets genuinely dangerous, because now you're underwater for most of the loan and paying serious interest. Putting less than 20% down is survivable if the car is cheap enough that depreciation won't bury you. On a used car that's already taken its depreciation hit, A smaller down payment is much less risky than on a brand new one. But the 10% number is the one I'd fight hardest to protect, because that's the one that governs the rest of your life. If your total car costs are eating 20 or 25% of your income, something else in your life is being starved. Usually savings, usually retirement, usually the thing you won't notice until decades later. And that's really the trade nobody frames honestly. Every extra $200 a month you put into a nicer car is $200 a month not going into investments. Over the years that a car loan runs, and then the next one, and the one after that, the gap between a reasonable car and an impressive car is not a few $1,000s. It's meaningfully large. Cars are the purchase where status pressure and financial damage overlap most cleanly, which is exactly why they're worth being deliberate about. Quick, honest note. This is educational, not personalized financial advice. Your income, your commute, your local costs, and your credit all change the answer for you specifically. So let me pull the whole thing together. The average new car is about $49,000. And following the standard rule, affording it would take an income around $178,000 a year, which is why so many people are quietly stretched. The rule is 24/10, 20% down, 4 years maximum, and total car costs, including insurance, fuel, and maintenance, under 10% of your gross income. By salary, roughly, $60,000 supports a car in the mid-20,000s. $72,000 supports about $18,500. $80,000 supports about $25,000, new or $15,000 used. $120,000 supports about $27,500. Don't be monthly payment Marcus. Never name a monthly payment first because it hands the dealer control of the price, the term, the rate, and the add-ons all at once. Be out the door, Olivia. Know your number, get pre-approved so you can check their interest rate against a real alternative, and negotiate only the out-the-door price. And remember that a 3 to 5-year-old car costs a fraction of new, because somebody else already ate the depreciation for you. The goal here was never to make you feel bad about your car. It's that almost nobody is given the actual math before the biggest purchase they make outside a house, and the entire sales process is built around keeping your attention on one number that hides everything else. Now you know which number to look at. If this was useful, send it to whoever you know who's about to go car shopping. And if you want to understand why so many people around you seem to be driving cars they clearly can't afford, watch my video, Why Everyone Looks Richer Than You, next. It explains exactly what's going on behind those payments. I'll see you in that one.